Hello, let's talk about the rune pages for Thresh currently. The keystone you want to go with every single time is going to be Aftershock. Guardian did have its place previously whenever the meta was more towards hyper carries and whatnot on Thresh. You could see a return of Guardian sometime later in Season 9 or maybe in Season 10, but currently Aftershock is the way to go on Thresh. The way Aftershock functions for Thresh, don't even look at the damage part. It's mostly just so that you get the bonus armor and magic resist whenever you CC a champion. So anytime you move forward for your Flay, that's going to make you basically not invulnerable to damage, but much, much tankier, making your trades in lane a lot better. So long that you're playing it properly. Where you walk forward, Flay, 1 auto, that's your trade, or you walk forward, Flay, hook, it makes that engage a lot safer for Thresh. The third rune, you probably want to go with Demolish. Demolish is a pretty consistent one. It makes it so that whenever you're winning, you win harder by getting the turret plates faster so that you can speed up the tempo of the game, which Thresh is particularly good at. He's particularly good at stomping lanes and then transitioning that lead onto the map through his roams and through his just CC with his team. If you're really trying to win lane, you can run Font of Life though. It's not hugely valuable. Font of Life will make it so that anytime you slower CC a target, they are marked and then your allies heal from that. So if you're really, really trying to play for lane, then sure, you can run Font of Life. But Demolish is a more standard rune choice and is what I would recommend for most players. If you're running with an AP bot lane, which can be somewhat common, such as Victor, Vladimir, those type of champions, Font of Life loses basically all value. And then Shield Bash is also a rune that you could run for a 2v2, in which case you would get the most value out of it because you get the bonus armor and magic resist, and then you might be able to proc this once, but that extra damage won't really matter, but it could make a difference. So it's a super low value rune. Don't really think about it. Just think about these two. Thank you. For the third, it's always going to be Bone Plating. Second Wind is not useful for Thresh. With Bone Plating, it blocks damage for free, so this effectively just gives you more health. It's on a 45-second cooldown, so meaning that you can proc it multiple times throughout the laning phase. And it procs every time you take damage initially. And then for the last rune in this resolve tree, it's going to be Unflinching. Overgrowth takes too long to stack up, isn't that useful. Thresh doesn't make good use of Revitalize, and Unflinching offers him tenacity and slow resist every time he casts a summoner spell and whenever his summoner spells are down. So Unflinching functions in a pretty useful way for Thresh in the sense that whenever he starts fights, i.e. through Flay igniting hooking or hooking a target and then igniting them, it's going to be a lot harder for the enemies to just peel you off because you have the tenacity and slow resist. And then when your summoner spells are down, which they should be pretty often if you're playing aggressively in lane, then you still get added benefit of the tenacity and slow resist. So this rune's pretty basic, but it's better than all the other ones in this row, and it synergizes an okay amount. It's not great, but it works. The secondary runes that you can run on Thresh are pretty differed depending on if you're going to be running coin or not. If you run Relic Shield, again, you're probably trying to play for the laning phase if you're running Relic Shield, in which case you want to run Minion Dematerializer. Minion Dematerializer makes it so that you take the cannon minion instantly when it comes to wave so that you have control over it, and then you also can use it on melee minions so that you build up damage on those melee minions, the extra damage that Dematerializer offers, so that it's easier to hit them later and later into the game. But what Minion Dematerializer mostly offers is where you can take that cannon minion in the laning phase, because that gives you complete lane control, making it so that you have the pushing lane so that you can move out of your lane or you can pressure your own lane. And then the secondary runes you can run is Perfect Timing, which gives you the one-time stopwatch that you later sell because you don't really upgrade it for anything on Thresh unless you're being kind of wild and going for Gargoyle Stoneplate. But the one-time stopwatch on Thresh can be pretty useful. Or Hextech Flash. I personally prefer Hextech Flash because it makes it so that you just have more and more opportunities throughout the laning phase to surprise worse opponents. And in solo queue, that's basically all you need. You don't have to look that far into it in terms of mind games in solo queue. It's just you go face and you keep going face. You just keep attacking them. And Hextech Flash lets you do that. So like let's say you flashed on your lane level 2, and then you can always be in the brush in the bot lane and then be Hextech flashing out of it so that you're closer for an immediate hook. So this is what I would recommend if you're running Relic Shield. If you're running Coin, you can take Biscuits instead of Dematerializer. But if you're running Relic Shield, you should probably run Dematerializer. Only in matchups in which the wave's going to be pushed into you regardless would be the ones I wouldn't run Dematerializer with Relic Shield. So yeah, to put it simply again, Biscuit Delivery if you're running Coin, Minion Dematerializer if you're running Relic Shield. Cosmic Insight is okay, but it's the CDR early on Thresh isn't really necessary, especially where they nerfed his hook cooldown. So with Adaptive Runes, I like to go Attack Speed. Adaptive Force is good and CDR is good, but with Attack Speed, it makes it so that you can get your initial Flay 1 auto trade-off a lot faster. It helps with pushing wave, it helps with clearing wards, and it helps with DPS in an all-in. And there's no other way to get attack speed on Thresh but this one particular rune. So I really like it. The most popular rune choice for Thresh is this CDR, but that's more for a mid-game type of Thresh. If you was to run Cosmic Insight and the CDR, you would get 10% for free coming into the mid-game, and then most likely have 20 or 30% coming into the mid-game. But that's not how I like to play Thresh. I like to play Thresh to just hard win lane and hard win the game, because that's the essence of League of Legends, especially in solo queue, is just win lane and then you win the game. To play as if you're going to be matched up against someone of equal skill with you and then the match is going to play out standard and then everything is completely even at 20 minutes in a solo queue game, like, get real, man. That's not going to happen. So speaking of playing aggressive, the secondary rune I like to run is Adaptive Force, because this gives you a slight amount of AD. It doesn't give you AP on Thresh, it gives you attack damage. And then that helps with last hitting the minions, getting extra damage onto the enemy. And if you didn't know, Thresh's Flay has a bonus AP or AD ratio. So that slightly adds to your on-hit damage from the Flay, which you could put 3 points in early if you're really trying to play aggressive. And then third, you want to go with armor every single time. Thresh has a super low base armor, so it's very important that you would run this extra armor. This health per level isn't going to work out, because the armor is just too damn valuable. Because you're in a duo lane 1, you're going to be taking auto attacks from 2 champions, so you get double the value out of the armor in that sense. You take physical damage from the minions, from the dragon, from a jungler, from the tower. That's a lot of things. And you start with super low base armor, so I think this armor is basically required on Thresh. If you were playing a more defensive style, you could run something like this, in which you would just be playing for mid game, which I don't recommend at all, especially if you're bad at Thresh. It's just like, what's the point? If you can't like win the lane, it's like, why even pick that champion? But in this case, you would be just like a Flay and Hook tool, rather than being able to actually damage the champions yourself and do a lot more yourself with, say, the attack speed, Adaptive Force, and then Hextech Flash and Dematerializer. So that's the rune page for Thresh, with some of the variation in the secondary tree and then the adaptive stats options. The only other options I think that's worth mentioning is still Domination Secondary. You don't want to switch up the keystones, but with Domination Secondary, with Cheap Shot, Relentless Hunter, and then Adaptive Force in the runes, what this does is makes it so that your initial Flay auto in lane will deal a ton of damage. Like level 2, you Flay the enemy and you auto them once, and it's going to deal so much damage. So maybe if you're lower elo or whatnot, this is a lot easier to make use of, because you'll have this bonus AD early and then the Cheap Shot to deal extra damage, and you don't have to worry about getting good at using Hextech Flash or Dematerializer, because these are pretty specific runes, or perfect timing. It just makes it so that you have to focus on Thresh's gameplay, which Cheap Shot and Relentless Hunter just happen naturally. You get more movement speed as you kill more enemies, and then you just deal more damage with your abilities with Cheap Shot. So I think this is an okay option, especially if you're lower elo or just new to Thresh in general. It makes things a lot simpler. So that was my recommendations. Hope that gives you some sort of insight to the rune pages. If you have any questions, you can leave them Leave them in the comments. I might respond, I might not. You know the deal. Alrighty, see you later. Bye-bye.